So in the last video, I discussed basically why the nature of reality is built so that all things must have come from something which nature is to simply reside within itself, which nature can beg the question without fallacy, essentially. So I'll explain why that is very briefly. Say you have a question, why is an apple on the table? And then you answer that question because someone put it there. Well, the answer that you've given can then be asked why in the same exact manner. And every answer you give, you can further ask why, and this goes back infinitely. We know that there must at some point have been an answer which can reside within itself. When you ask why does this thing exist, the answer is it simply does, and that is that thing's nature. I get more into that on the other video. Go and watch it. But coming off of that, today I have two topics to talk about. I might separate them into two videos. One, what I call the tools of being, and two, the nature of order in our reality. So what we have now in the last video is I left it on a question. Well, if something has created everything, so everything spawns from this one thing, what is that thing? What is the nature of that thing other than simply existing? It simply exists, but in what exact state, what traits does it have? How do we deduce that? Because that seems like a question that people have been trying to deduce since the beginning of human history. Much like a detective gets to a crime scene and has a set arsenal of tools, say fingerprinting, DNA testing, witness accounts, different things. He has different tools that he can utilize to find this answer. We, as people, have been given a set of tools that allow us to perceive truths about reality. You can then piece together the blank spots and infer some interesting things about the nature of reality. Humans have three tools, animals have two. Three tools, that being the senses of the material, or the ability to perceive matter through sight, touch, taste, sound, smell. We can perceive a lot of things about matter. Now, are there more things about matter we can't perceive? Yes, there's some animals can sense electricity, and we can't do that. We have started to through technology, but as a person, we cannot sense electricity in the same way that like a platypus or a shark or certain types of fish would be able to. Secondly, we have our reason, the tool that we can use to deduce what does and does not make sense. Animals have this one as well. The ability to say, well, based on my experience, this is the most logical thing that is going to happen. Or based on just sound common sense, people call it common sense, this is what is logical. And here's the one that's unique to humans, it seems, is the knowledge of good and evil, or a conscience. What that one is we can sense the reason, and we can understand what might be the most logical thing, but then the conscience comes in and can almost overwrite reason and make us do something that, while not reasonable, is considered ethical. I'm going to give an example of a situation that utilizes all three tools, which every single situation we're in does, but this one is very clear to me, the part each tool plays in this. And from there, we can break it down. You're walking down home from the bar, it's a rainy night, and as you're walking, you start to hear a strange noise coming from an alleyway just up ahead. You approach the alleyway and you look around the corner. First step, you sense matter. You look and you see what is going on. You see that there are two people. You see that one person has a knife or a weapon of some sort. And you see that the other person is reaching for his pocket. Now, using your previous experiences in life, you deduce logically what is going on. You say it likely because one man has a weapon and the other man is reaching for his wallet, and you know typically people who steal will do so by force with a weapon or of some sort, and most people keep their money in their wallet, in their pocket. And so likely what's going on is a man has a weapon and is forcing this man to reach for his wallet, which is in his pocket. Right? So you've seen, you've deduced. You've used two of the tools. Now here's where the third one kicks in. You have to figure out what to do with this information. The logical thing for self-preservation, walk away. Who knows if immediately say he has a gun or something even more dangerous than the weapon in his hand. Getting mixed up in this seems to be a very illogical decision. Yet, there's an ethical side. The third tool kicks in and tells you, well, I need to help this person. Why? Because they need help. And if I were in their situation, I too would want help. Well, now here's where logic and ethics, logic and conscience can clash sometimes. Because like I said, the most logical thing is not always the most ethical thing. If you walk away right now and don't help this man, leave him be, it doesn't affect you again. You can walk away, never think about it again, and just not have to worry about it. You know, it's not even a thing. But there seems to be a voice in your head that will continually, without break, make you feel guilty or as if you have done something ethically incorrect by not helping this man. It's odd because that voice seems to not be a part of you because it's in clash with you. You didn't want to do it, and yet something in you tells you did want to do it. So what are these two clashing forces? One thing cannot exist in a state simultaneously opposite of itself. If you had one tool there, just logic cannot exist in opposition to itself. So there must be a second thing which exists in opposition to logic. Not always necessarily in opposition to, but in this case it is. And that is the conscience. Logically speaking, you can leave it be and never think about it again. Yet the conscience will come back and continually tell you that you've done something wrong. It can be so miserable to deal with a guilty conscience that you will put logic to the wayside just to not have to deal with that guilt. What we've seen is that one tool seems to inform the other. Your senses can inform your logic. You sense what's going on, and then you get to deduce something about it. Your logic can inform your conscience. You've deduced the situation, now your conscience tells you what to do about it. And so it seems that we have three things, each one informing the next, and the conscience at the end seems to be the one that reigns supreme, in the sense that even if you make the logical decision, the conscience will continue hammering on you that it was the incorrect one. And that conscience is not something that animals have been observed to have. I have 2 cats, and I love my cats, but I know that my cats love me because I feed them and I keep them healthy. That's just the nature of animals. They can love you if you prove to them logically that loving you is not beneficial to them, then they're not too pressed. If a man is walking down the street and sees a dog getting beat by another man, chances are he'll go stop and intervene and say, stop beating that dog. If a dog is walking down the street and sees a man getting beat by another man, dog couldn't care less. Unless he had a previous attachment to the man, because he knows that the man is a source of food and shelter and all these things, in which case he'll likely try to save the man. But that is out of self-interest. That's not something that would be fueled by conscience. That's simply a logical decision. So it seems that us humans are the only thing on this planet left with a conscience. These tools are, as I've said, basically tools, no better way of putting it, that have been given to us as creatures to have insights into the nature of reality. Now, the nature of reality is something that would be constant. It has one state of being. However, that one state of being is comprised of lots of different facets that all work together in harmony. And we have access to three. We have access to matter, logic, and the knowledge of good and evil, or a conscience. Say God, or whoever would have created us, has access to all the tools. Now, God existing within himself in an unchangeable nature, depending on how you look at it, is reality himself, has all the tools to observe every facet of reality, which would also be himself, which is where it gets confusing, because that's what we talked about in the last one, having to beg the question about God's existence. God has given us three tools to deduce the nature of reality. Now, when we talk about spiritual or angelic beings, perhaps they would have an extra tool, there's some other thing that we can't even comprehend, some spiritual thing that wouldn't be like seeing with your eyes, or wouldn't be like deducing logically or having a conscience. There's a fourth facet to reality that an angel might have, and a fifth that an even higher being might have. And God can see all these elements of reality perfectly. These tools that we have been given by our Creator are just enough to comprehend everything that we need to about our own existence, while simultaneously not being too much for us to handle. A blatant sense, in the sense of going insane. Say, there have been stories of people tripping on psychedelics that have seen things that have given them PTSD and multiple things. One could argue that those are insights into this fourth tool, perhaps. I don't know where I'd stand on that. But if you'd want to argue that, then you'd have to say, well, whatever tool that is, when given powerfully to people, seems to be too much for them to handle. If let's just assume the Christian God, and we'll get into this later, but let's say God has to judge us on a judgment day, or the more tools we have, the higher standard will be held to. Animals can't be judged ethically because they don't have the tool of the knowledge of good and evil. So ethically speaking, animals cannot be wrong because they don't know. People can, though. Now, let's say because we can, we are held to a much higher standard. In the same way, someone with more tools would be held to an even higher standard. Take Lucifer, for example. If Lucifer had extra tools to us and rebelled against God, then he's held to a standard by which he is infinitely banished from entering the kingdom of heaven ever again, simply because he's been held to a higher standard by his greater ability to perceive reality. In the next video, starting with observing the nature of order in our reality, the fact that all these tools work together orderly, as well as the fact that our reality seems to work together orderly, and even more interestingly, orderly in threes. We have three tools. There's three facets to matter: time, space, and matter. We see the number 3 pop up a lot. I will get into that in the next video. Probably just recording straight after this one, but I'll edit them into 2 separate videos. All right.